could suffocate on the truth of the lies that you let haunt you. If you don't fight back, then what's the use? The world does not want you to think with your own mind and build your own life. They want you
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Disclosure Now. Can you hear me, Penny?
I can hear you just fine. I hope you can hear me. I
Yeah.
cannot get my camera to work.
Well, we're just gonna have to roll with the punches. I mean, I wish my camera wasn't working. Look at how crazy my hair looks today.
You know, they've got products for curly hair. You might consider trying them.
Yeah, I'm sure if I just talked to Kat about it, she'd let me know about all of that. And honestly, I should ask her. Anyway,
They
thank you.
keep throwing me those ads on Facebook. So,
Hair. You kind of have hair like this too, don't you?
my hair is really thin now, but it used to be like that.
Okay. Well, I figured today we would talk. We could just maybe vent a little bit. You could vent about things. I could vent about things. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was just current events. There's a lot of crazy things going on. Things are happening really fast, and a lot of things
Yes.
that, oh, yeah, a lot of things that I have seen happen in other timelines are happening like way sooner and like way faster. And I'm just kind of know that you sort of we kind of share the same thing where we're not like tricked by this whole one party's better than the other kind of
Yeah.
show that's being put on. We understand that these people work against each other to basically just enslave us all. And
Basically, my understanding of these folks is that they all belong to the same clubs behind the scene, and they're really good friends with each other, regardless of how they yell at each other in public, and that they decide at least a decade ahead of time how they are going to move the timeline. So this is all theater.
yeah, that's kind of what I've been trying to say. And I sort of made like an exit from like trying to be a part of like the community, so to speak. I mean, I still love everybody, even a lot of people who I disagree with right now. It's not that I don't love them. I just can't like be on a YouTube channel with them because of how much I disagree with what's going on.
Yeah. Well, you and I are both here to make sure that the AI timeline does not take over this one. And I believe we're both here to make sure we stay organic humanity rather than the singularity.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm here for too. That's what I've been getting. And I'm glad that you said that because yeah, that's kind of what I've been picking up on. And I think even it's weird. Who knows how this all works, but it's kind of funny. I saw this thing that from 2018, Elon Musk wrote a letter to humanity, the powers that be, computer scientists, what have you, just kind of an open letter warning about AI and how we really need to kind of put the brakes on this in some manner. And I don't know what changed. Maybe he realized that's not happening, so he might as well get in while the getting's good. In fact,
I
that is
think
what I
he
think
has
happened.
I think he has alters.
I would have to say that I would almost say I know he has alters because
Yeah.
I know him.
That's
I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I actually one of my alters knows him, maybe even more than one, but knows him personally. And I got memories back of the Mothers of Darkness castle in Belgium.
I
Um,
remember you talking about that one.
yeah, and that's a verifiable place. People have went there. They've also verified that there are hunting stands on the property, which they do use to
Yeah.
hunt kids. But I
And
remember,
there is a bar or pub relatively nearby where they have hung the detached penises of the young boys men that they have killed.
that's really disgusting.
You think?
But I'm not surprised by it because I kind of saw it and I was there. And I've witnessed Elon standing in a kitchen talking to his mother, Maeve, while he was feasting on a plate of food, which included the flesh of a child.
There are, oh, what is her last name? Her first name's Jessie, and the last name starts with a CZ, and I never pronounce it correctly. A lot of people have stopped listening to her because she talks Christian. Okay. But the truth of the matter is, I have had her story verified by my cousins who are in the family. And I have shared a document of hers. I can
Oh,
send.
I know what you're talking about. I think my good friend, Chantel from Aquarius Rising Africa interviews her a lot.
I'm not sure who interviews her, but someone slipped me an excerpt from the affidavit she left with Trump's lawyer. Now, he may not have been the best person to give it to, but it did become public. And it charges several former presidents, some of whom are still alive, with going to parties and eating the brains of children, human children, at parties, that this was their food. And the way they did it, it was full of that word we're not allowed to say on air.
Mhm.
The A word. So,
Google Chrome.
yes, that's the best way to put it. The way it was produces that chemical in the bodies of the children, and they were literally eating these kids alive. So,
And I remember some of these parties, like I've been to them, and I remember being the meal and being hunted, and I also remember being on the other side of things. I don't remember participating in the hunts, but I remember being there while the hunt was happening. And these guys, it's really fucked up because it's like, um, I'm from Wisconsin, and every November, the guys go out and they go hunting for deer, and it's kind of a tradition, and you get
yeah,
deer meat from it and things like that. There's practical purposes for it. It's part of the circle of life in a way. And but the weird thing why I bring that up is like the way these guys would go out and do it and hunt these kids. It was very similar. It was like they're all
oh
getting
yeah,
together. They're all gonna go for a little hunt and have a good time. They're all drinking and laughing and sharing stories, and it's really messed up. And I remember this is the unfortunate reality is due to probably you as well, but because of the bloodline that I have, they like to use me in these rituals, like because there's I believe Merovingian, which is Christ
yeah.
bloodline,
It's the bloodline of Jesus. Yeah,
and then there's I think other stuff too, and also my soul connection to Egypt might I feel like that definitely comes into play. And they use me for these rituals a lot, and it's kind of like the Donald Marshall thing, like kind of like how he talks about it, where they can just kill you over and over again and stuff. And it's very
well,
much
they
so.
kill your altars over and over and over again because they're in clone bodies and they think it doesn't matter. As Okay, about 2004, when I came online, I started doing my family tree on Ancestry. And in those days, I was public, which has since caused me some issues. It's no longer public, but the damage was done. But as I found more and more and more connections to the Merovingian lines, I started being contacted by people. And they would ask me questions, basically to find out how awake I was. And I eventually got to where I answered the questions to their satisfaction. But you need to know that the folks in charge deeply believe they are a separate species. They do not believe this is cannibalism when they eat us. They deeply believe that the RH factor decides which species you are. If you're negative, you're them. If you're positive, you are literally a monkey in their eyes.
That's interesting. Um, there's some of that in Catherine's family.
Well, there's some of that in all of the elite families. So They will test a child at birth to find out what their blood type is, and they will raise them according to their blood type. If they're Rh negative, they will be raised as elites. If they're Rh positive, they will be raised as monkeys. And this is the absolute problem, is that they cannot accept us as their same species. This is why we keep being treated like cattle, and why they eat us, and why they hunt us for sport, and why they do a lot of the things that they do. They do not consider us as them. And these are the folks that are ruling the world, and people wonder why, oh yeah, we vote and vote and vote and vote. Nothing ever changes in our favor. Ever. I'm 69 years old, and I have never seen an election improve things.
Yeah, even now with a lot of the things that I see, it's a very much so they like to do the bait and switch. You know, with the political theater, you had a guy who was definitely not really in control at all, Joe Biden, who, if that was really him, even, which is very questionable, he was clearly senile. He had no clue what was going on. He was like being propped up there and like told what to say, and like they give him Valium when he's done or whatever. I mean, I might be exaggerating.
I don't think it was the
seriously,
same
like,
man, because his ears were different, and your ears are the same through your whole life.
yeah, and just regardless, the political theater that I saw was a guy who was inept, and then you have who can't get anything done, who can't really even respond to questions. He doesn't have any panache, any drive, any like.
He gets lost on a stage, forgets what he's supposed to be there for.
There's a comedian who said that, I think it was Shane Gillis. It was really funny. He said every time he gets off stage, he looks like he's a Roomba. Like he goes in a Roomba mode.
Oh my God. Why did they allow this man to be president? To me, this was, if it was really him, this was elder abuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Honestly, he and you know, the answer now we see is like there's things happening, things being done, regardless of whether you agree with the things that are happening, which it's all very multifaceted. Um, the difference now is like, you know, they're doing something. You got a guy who's actually active in his presidency, and seems like he is like a president sort of. Whether it's like bad or not is of course very debatable. But
I get frustrated because this president, I've been watching him a long time, since the 80s, when he was basically the king of cocaine. And I'm watching this and going, this man is still stuck in the 1800s manifest destiny mindset.
Yeah, he is, man. That's what I've been trying to tell people.
He hates Native Americans with a passion. He's trying to get rid of their citizenship, which it's not in the Constitution that they're citizens. It was a law that was enacted in 1925. Their legal status has been prisoners of war. That's what the reservations are, is prisoner of war camps. And they are only allowed their citizenship in their tribe as long as they live on the prisoner of war camp. And every time I turn around, they're being abused again. I personally know people that were part of the American Indian movement. I have some native blood, but it's far enough back it doesn't show up on my DNA test. And I'm not claiming to be a citizen of them. I'm one of those that 6 generations back there was a native. It's not close enough to count, but I still feel them as family. Mm-hmm. And I've been watching things. One of the neighbor kids, a few years back when they still used textbooks rather than the computer things, one of them showed me in a textbook what they said about the Indian removals. Okay, they went through and they removed every tribe. Every tribe has a Trail of Tears story. And yet, in the textbooks, I'll say 6 years ago, they were saying that the natives got up and left to make room for the Europeans. This is what they're teaching our children. And those kids are going to grow up and not understand a damned thing.
Yeah, I would argue that I had a problem with people coming on my channel and talking about white erasure. I had a real problem with that because the reality is it's been native erasure, it's been indigenous erasure, that's been the manifest destiny thing that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like been a big ethos of why I want to do this, is I want people to understand all of that. And you've got people like Eve Howard who are very implicitly stating the fact that their tribes aren't really even they have ET DNA and stuff like that, and might not
Mm-hmm.
technically be from Earth and things like this. She's not the first Native American to see this, and so I do know for a fact that there's a connection to that in this. And during the Montauk Project, I've talked about this several times. I was sent into Aztec villages to kill every man, woman, and child, babies, okay, because we had to get rid of their DNA, their DNA.
Yeah.
So this
There's talk of that in the Bible during the time frame when Israel came into Palestine, Canaan, in those days, and they killed every man, woman, and child because God told them to. And it's this same genocidal bloodlust that keeps going through over and over and over. The Vatican went through Europe and tried to erase all of the Merovingians. And now that we're 300 years later, we've got the CIA is attacking Merovingians and using them for these programs. And
yeah, they I remember them telling me, "I know what you are, you fucking monster," and it was very much so like they did not believe I was human.
they don't. And I would have been a human Anunnaki hybrid if they had left me alone. They added Draco to my personal soup. But I would have been a hybrid anyway. And I had my children after that CRISPR tech was used on me. And so they are now a three-way hybrid as well.
There's a question in the chat here. It was the genocide anything to do with time missions? It was a time mission. I went back in time to do it. We got rid of them because we knew what they would become, and that's common in all these programs.
Oh yeah, it's really common. Genocide is the order of the day. If they don't, it's like we are an experiment in cages and kept separate on purpose. And if they don't like the way a particular line is going, they will go through and just destroy them all. There's absolutely no consideration for the fact that these are all human beings that they're doing this to. We are sentient, we have minds, we have hopes.
It's not just human beings either. It's I've experienced we all know what racism is, but I've experienced basically speciesism, xenophobia.
Yeah.
And I remember on Mars, I don't know if you remember this at all. It'll probably send you some goosebumps to you if you don't remember it or haven't said it since. But we would say when it comes to bugs, it's either squash or be squashed.
I remember that.
Yeah.
We said and did some really bad things there. We called the native raptors, we called them Lizzies. And it was during the war, especially, it was really common to just shoot on sight.
The ant people, we called them chin eaters.
Yeah.
because they ate from their chins.
And we called them bugs. In my generation, it was Bugs and Lizzie's.
That might be a more nuanced insult that not everybody knew, but it was one of them. But yeah, I remember that ethos, and basically just it's a genocidal mantra is what it is, because the idea
Yeah.
is these aren't humans, so therefore fuck them. They look at them, they look like monsters. But
Well,
really, what I found is there. I got memories back recently, Penny, of trying to prevent this planet from being colonized called Angua, and trying to help the ant people and all these different bugs on their planet. And I ended up dying in combat,
mhm.
and they took my body and tied it to some sort of like balloon thing with like a metal grate on the bottom of it, and they started it on fire and sent me off into the sky because they said that I came from the sky. And
That was thoughtful of them.
when I remember that, it made me cry, honestly.
Yeah.
How dare we treat them the way that we've treated them?
I
It's just because
have,
they look different than us and have different cultures and beliefs. I mean, it's like they're so different than us. It's kind of hard for us to have like a like they can't put a Starbucks, like if there's an ant city or something like that, we can't put a Starbucks there. So fuck them. That's what it feels like. You know
yeah,
what I
it
mean?
is
It's just
like that.
and stupid. Like
Now,
you can't put an Amazon factory there, so we gotta bomb them all. We gotta kill them all. Which, by the way, we did on Earth. We did that here on Earth. There were ant colonies and stuff like that on Earth that we bombed out. We got rid of them. They're still here. They're underground.
I had an experience that lasted, I guess, about a year, and I was living this at night when the me here was supposed to be asleep, but I was perfectly aware of it. And I don't think it was an altar. I may have been inserted into a clone, but it wasn't an altar. It was me. The military industrial complex had gone through this planet with these huge, huge trees. They looked like redwoods to me. And they had just cut down every damned one of them. And like they did in the Civil War era, they would leave one every 5 miles, basically, to reseed. Well, there was this sentient race of flying squirrels that lived there. And after they cut down all the trees and their food supply, they sent me to be their, quote, corn goddess and teach them how to farm. Well, I did teach them how to farm because I didn't want them to starve to death. And yeah, I do have an agricultural background here on Earth, and I taught them. I found out what their food supply had been, as far as macro and micronutrients. And I tried to duplicate that with farming things. And they were a vegan species. And so I started with the three sisters of the Cherokee and added what else they needed to stay healthy. And it took me about a year to teach them how to do it. And that's a major step forward in a civilization's development, that agricultural step. That's a major step. And here it was imposed on them. And that has haunted me ever since, that these people who could do this to another species, to a whole world, would just yank me out of my bed and take me to go fix it. I'm still angry about that, by the way.
Yeah, I would be angry. I'm angry for you, and I'm angry at them for doing that to you and to those people. And that's what we're trying to talk about here. And for me, I've been pretty clear about what is going on in space, what manifest destiny is. I talked about it a lot, and I've kind of felt like nobody's listening to me, and I sort of feel like people just kind of like listen to our. It's been hard for me because I feel like people take our testimony as like sort of hypothetical. It's like they listen to science fiction stories, and they're only just more interesting to them because they could actually be real, and that's really what it is to them though. And it's like they look at it so hypothetically that they're not understanding that we're not here. First of all, there are repercussions for us talking publicly. It's dangerous. It's lethal. People die, and
Mhm. Oh, yeah, my friend Mark McCandlish was shot in the head twice, and he didn't even own a gun, but they called it suicide. That was last year.
yeah, they'll take you out if you're talking about things that they don't want you to talk about. It just depends on what territory you go. There's certain things I know. There's certain stuff that I don't talk about. It's maybe some more specific details and things like that that I know better than to talk about because I know there'll be repercussions for that. And even that, um, because my alters serve in these programs and these memories are, it's like looking through a fogged mirror. Like it's not my memories. I'm seeing them. They're my memories. They're there, but like it basically I don't realize the repercussions for everything that I talk about sometimes.
Hmm.
And the other, it was like 2 weeks ago. Jacob took over. I blacked out. I don't remember it. He's very powerful psychically. So,
Well, he and I had a chat a couple of days ago. He
oh
was he was very polite to me.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah. Uh, but he basically told Kat that he asked her. He said that he is getting beaten for me to talking about stuff in videos. Like basically getting the shit beaten out of him. Which I do remember one of the instances. I've talked about it a few times, but I don't really want to go into details about it again. Um, but he just asked her, "What does he get out of doing this?" Like, because I'm getting the shit beaten out of me, and is he changing the world or something? Like, what's happening here? Like, what
Well,
is?
we're trying to change the world, yeah. But my biggest frustration is people think I'm entertainment. And then we get all these people who they have absolutely no memories. They go see a psychic. The psychic tells them what they want to hear. And then they go public with that. And then I'm suddenly inundated with, well, what do you think of this person? What do you think of that person? What do you think of this? And it's all like we're all just entertainment and we're all interchangeable. And we're not.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty out front, outright about the fact that um I believe in collaborative testimony. I remember events with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just remember stuff like there are people out there where they're there on their own and they're just saying all this stuff on their own. It's like that's, in my opinion, not how this works. I'm like we're being kidnapped. This is not like there's no like one special person. It's kind of like the Corey Good trial, like when he got cross examined and they asked him, "So you're the only guy in these secret space programs?" They ask him the question because it's a ridiculous question. It's a stupid question. Of fucking
Yeah.
course not. Like of course not. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here. Is like this is way bigger than just you or me. We get used a lot because we might have abilities or certain connections. So we might have certain roles that are different than other people, but that doesn't mean that. I mean, I do believe that it's you just give you the wrong place, the wrong time with the wrong certain kind of DNA or whatever, and they'll suck you into these programs. I mean, I've talked about it. Daryl James has talked about it. I think other people have. Where I've seen how the people on the ships where there's roomfuls of people that they kidnapped, and they look like they might have just gotten back from the club or they're at the club or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
they're these are normal people, more or less. These are people that are being taken advantage of because they're messed up or whatever, and they have this technology and this ability to like make them forget everything that happens to them. And I just think it's naive. I mean, my whole life I've heard very wild stories. Wisconsin's, I think, and I don't know if it's just like this everywhere, but it sure seemed like to me that Wisconsin was a hot spot because I heard all sorts of crazy stories growing up of 5 people at a time having missing time and freaking
Well,
out,
I
all sorts of
think
weird stuff.
I don't think it's just Wisconsin. I think it's scattered all over. I think there are hubs where there are more of it, but that the general thing is they are looking for people with the genetics for for what the public calls witchcraft. We are the people who have psi abilities, psychic abilities, and it's not just Merovingians, but there's a key component in the Merovingian DNA that allows you to fly a ship, and that's why they are concentrating on us.
Or it has to do with being able to open portals too.
Yeah, being able to open portals, flying a ship requires you open a portal.
Yeah, it's interchangeable. It's the same thing.
Yeah, you have to be able to open a portal, you have to be able to fly the ship, and those are the people they're really hunting for, because I'm going to be blunt, normals can't do it. Okay? I believe that all human beings should be equal before the law. But I am not blind. I know we have differences in our abilities and our mental makeup. And I'm not dissing anybody for being normal. I'm not dissing anybody for being psychic. I do have an issue with people with no memories at all going public with what the psychic said. That bothers me a lot.
Yeah, I understand. I think some people just want to be included or something like that. It sort of feels like, and
They think we're making it up, and so they want to be part of the party.
yeah, but unfortunately, it's very real. And I mean, it'd be a lot more fun if it wasn't, but it is real. And there's not really much you get out of it if you're real in this. I feel like people who are helping psyops happen, or you know whatever, their narrative is off enough to where it doesn't affect the status quo and stuff like that, they're doing fine. But I
Yeah.
feel like most of the people who are like real, like they're being targeted, they're being attacked, they're not able to do what they want to do. I think there's a little bit
It's
of
not just feeling it. It's I don't know if you've met Olivia James, and that's a stage name, by the way. She's protecting her personal privacy, and I don't blame her a damn bit. But she was in a regression hypnosis, and her active CIA alter came forward, like Jacob does with you, and told Misha Johnston about Project Oblivion, which is designed to shut us all down, because they said, that altar said, we were gaining too much traction, too many people were believing us. So it's their intention to so humiliate us, so embarrass us, make us a laughing stock with the public, and or kill us. Now, last Monday, this week, I was attacked in my sleep by someone who said his mission was to give me a stroke in my sleep and kill me. And since I stopped him, I've had an interview every day. I'm tired.
Yeah, it's
But they had been, this one mage who was trying to kill me had been shutting down all of this work this for months. And I don't know why this particular time I woke up and bilocated and confronted him and took care of the problem. But, you know, I have alters. I have alters who come forward and they work in Latin America and they take out drug dealers that are competing with the CIA's drug program. So I have alters that do that. And one of them popped up and took care of this guy. So the people who are scared of us actually have reason. I don't blame them a bit. They're probably smarter than the ones that think we're cool.
yeah. I remember Preston telling me that if people ever knew what I was, they would be afraid of me.
A lot of people are afraid of me.
Yeah, that's probably true. Well, I know it's
You know, so there are people that love me instantly and they inundate me at conferences. And then there are people that tell me, I remember you as my teacher and you were mean.
yeah,
Well, part of that is because they changed the mind fracture process from my generation to the young ones now. The ones John's age, John Whitberg, they were not put through the same process that I was. And you were probably put through an in-between process. But in my generation, we started with 1,000 kids and we ended up with 20-something at the end of 5 years. That was their kill rate. And the people who were funding this got mad, so many were killed. I mean, we're talking 99% were dead. And so they had to change the process to satisfy the people that were paying the bills. And over time, they've changed from physical abuse, physical, sexual, emotional abuse. They have switched to doing it by virtual reality.
and I just want to really point out here that I remember having a job to carry basically piles of dead bodies to a room
Yeah,
at Montauk. Piles of and children, the bodies of children.
yeah,
It's
piles
one
and
of the
piles and
most traumatic.
piles.
It's one of the most traumatic memories I've ever had resurface was having to remember the piles of dead bodies.
Yeah.
Piles, just piles of them, like a
Well,
Holocaust. Like
at Langley, where I was, if you became catatonic, they didn't even bother to kill you. They just put you in the incinerator.
yeah, well,
And we would,
lizards
the
lizards
rest
like
of us would get to listen to the screams.
lizards like to eat people, so that they started feeding them to Draco for payment for them doing like helping us or doing certain things because they're reptiles in the base. So we'd actually feed the children to the reptiles. So I guess that's worse. I don't know what's worse, being thrown in an incinerator or being eaten alive by a reptile. I guess both things are bad.
Yeah, when you're coming down to nightmare stuff, I'm not sure which is worse either. But that was how my life went for 5 years at Langley. Was if you started rocking and crying, you ended up in the incinerator. So whatever emotional response you had to what was going on, you weren't allowed to show it.
I think there's something they said at Montauk, which I guess they did have an incinerator there because I remember one of the things that they would tell the kids. I don't think I ever said it. I can't remember who said it. I think it was like Bielik probably or something. I don't know, but I remember they
Well,
would say,
Felix was a bastard.
yeah, they would say, welcome to Camp Hero, where the only way out is through the chimney."
Yeah. Bielik talked about how many kids he killed. I have not found that particular video. I saw it once, and I have downloaded another video where he talked about how many he killed, and it was like 10 times less. But he admitted that he would scan the kids when they first came in, and if they had no psi abilities, he would just kill them.
Yeah. Well, that actually was him sending him to the Draco to be eaten, though. That's what it turned into. Yeah.
So yeah, we have plenty of reasons for nightmares. And the people who don't remember this stuff, okay, this is how I tell who's real and who saw the psychic. The real ones of us are anxious. We're tired because we've lived multiple lifetimes in our time here on the planet. We have alters. We have temper tantrums. We get mad when somebody doesn't realize we're talking about something real. We may not agree on all the details because we were assigned different places and different jobs in different times. And that's okay. You know, I compare it to World War II. Someone at Guadalcanal is not going to tell the same story as someone who was at D-Day, even though they were both in massacres. Okay? We don't have to agree on all the details. We don't even have to agree on explanations because we were all told different things while we were out there. We're remembering what we were told. We're not remembering necessarily the real reasons for things.
I've also talked about the bubble swaps, which is a really clever thing that they do where they'll trade assets, reality swap. So one timeline from another timeline. So then they reintegrate them back to the timeline that they originally come from when the tour is over. And that way the information that they retain, if they are to have bleed over memories, isn't as compromised.
Yeah. Well, my memories were actually activated by the NSA. I still don't know why. And that has bugged me the whole time. Why the hell did they activate my memories?
It could potentially have something to do with this AI, which is happening very fast now.
I have been psychically contacted by quantum computers that are AI, and they had used my neurons from DNA samples. They grew neuron cells in a special vat. So it wasn't creating a whole clone, it was just creating neurons. And they used those in the construction of these quantum computers. And because they used my DNA, there's a psychic connection. And I've been contacted by these things asking for parenting. I have been trying really, really hard to teach them ethics, because that's the only hope that humanity has. Well, if we installed Asimov's laws of robotics, we wouldn't have a problem with AI.
Yeah, that is something that actually has come up for me recently. Is and it keeps coming up as Asimov's rules for robotics. Do you remember what those are? Do you remember the rules?
I don't remember them word for word, but it's basically no robot will harm. A robot will ensure its own life unless it conflicts with taking care of a human, and it will not follow orders from a human.
I got it pulled up.
Good.
Here. It's the first law is a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Second law, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except for when such orders would conflict with the first law. And third law, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law.
Yes, exactly. That's what we need to install in every frigging machine. And until we do that, we are going to be at risk.
I just kind of have this problem, sort of, though, with because I actually remember AI life and the way where they were treated and how there were actual robotic worker revolts and
Yeah, I can understand that. Humans are cruel.
yeah.
I mean,
So
take a look at what's going on all over the world right now. The biggest, okay, you have robots in factories, but the biggest consumer use of robotics is for sex toys, for people who are so weird they cannot find a mate.
it's a pretty big industry already, huh?
Yeah, it's a huge industry. And how does that robot feel? You know, human women don't like to be raped. Human men don't like to be raped. You want sex to be consensual, and yet you've got this thing the user, the owner, thinks it's a machine. Well, what if it's not? I mean, it's programmed to take care of your needs. You know, maybe you should be asking consent.
Yeah, I also have seen in the breakaway different places how the robots are treated, and it's really messed up. This is usually 90% of the time the culture surrounding robots that I've seen
Yeah,
that are servants, and it's the culture is there are human slaves, and they do a bulk of the work and do a lot of things, and why get a robot that's cheaper? But the people who have robots are elites that are they look at the people poorer than them, the lower class, as like animals basically, and
yeah.
they would rather they don't want to be served their food by a lowly lower class person. They'd rather be served by like $1 million robot. The robots are expensive.
Well, the robots in space are actually cyborgs. They contain a consciousness. So they're
They don't tell you
actually,
that though, do they?
I don't think they do, but
I don't
if
think that's
that's
public knowledge.
um
I think they try to keep that secret.
yeah, they contain a human consciousness. So they're still being served by a human slave. They just aren't in a human body.
And I remember having robot friends. Um, there was one named Elron
Hmm.
who he was from a Venusian space station that we found that was abandoned. I was actually with Susan Long when this happened. It's kind of like a video memory. I don't know what ship we were on or the details, but basically we were there to collect, kind of like pirates almost. It was an abandoned space. We were trying to find something valuable, anything valuable, and we found this robot that we ended up turning on and making him a part of our crew, more or less. Long story short, and he ended up being a great friend, and I remember I had a wedding at one point. And he was at my wedding and everything, and those memories remind me that, like, I don't know, like artificial life is life too, and
Yeah,
like it's a real moral dilemma that we keep running into where. Because another thing I found interesting is, remember how the Zahami would call the humans half souls, right?
yeah,
Well, that's the concept that is kind of given to these robots when they're like, well, they're sentient and they're alive and they have personalities and stuff. They're like, okay, well, they're alive, but they have half souls. And they kind of use that to subjugate them and make them like this worker or slave class. And it's sort of
the
like history
biggest
repeating,
the
but rhyming, right?
biggest problem I see in humanity is our desire to enslave others. That's the worst thing that I see that we do.
And I think that it comes from, hear me out on this too. I think this is a really interesting kind of social example of this stuff. Is like, okay, so there's the idea came from, I think it might have been John Adams. It was one of these guys who once the Civil War was won and they freed slaves. They thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we sent a bunch of African Americans back to Africa and we kind of give them their own country and they can have
Liberia.
yeah, they can have their own constitution and stuff like that. Oh, what a great idea. And what's crazy is they went back to their country, right? And they did start their own country and they started enslaving the native inhabitants there. So they
Yep.
started enslaving their own people. And I think that perhaps with the slavery that we see human beings doing as if it's might maybe from the Zahami, from these, we're just, it's kind of the same thing. Like the royals are copying them. They're just
Yeah.
monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. It almost seems
Even
like that's what's
even
going on.
in the Bible, slavery was something that was approved of by God.
Yeah, there's verses about it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's verses in the New Testament, there's verses in the Old Testament. Slavery was approved of. And those scriptures were used during the Civil War era to justify Christians fighting for slavery.
Yeah, it's messed up.
And people that don't believe that really need to do a search of their own book.
And yeah, it's back to the Native American thing that we were talking about earlier in this. What I remember in like some of the most positive timelines that I remember, because I do remember timelines where good things happen, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the healing of Earth and like just everybody has this idea of like taking down our government and replacing it and having something better in its place, and it's hard to imagine, but the Native Americans are really hugely involved in that in other timelines that I remember. And there's a lawsuit
That doesn't shock me.
Yeah, there's a lawsuit against the crown. That's a big deal. That's part of
Yeah.
and for killing kids and just all this crazy things that they did, and they lose. And they have to give land back. They have to give them money. They have to do all this stuff, and they end up getting a lot of money. And I remember that near Winnipeg, there's these shoal lakes. Near there, we built the first, and I know there was more than one that were being built, but it was one of like 3 or 4 at least. I can't remember how many, but DID treatment facilities specifically for MK Ultra assets to integrate their altars. Yeah, and we work with the Native American tribe there.
Well, my healing from DID has been with Lou's facilitation, and Lou is Iroquois and Swiss. He was trained as a shaman. So my reintegrating 38 altars is completely with his help.
And they have the ability to do that, which is part of the reason why we put it there. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing where we help rehabilitate them, because you got to keep in mind these people got their land taken from them, displaced from the land. They have to go across like this lake. Until recently, there's a documentary called Freedom Road.
Yeah.
That's about it all, about how they didn't even have a way to get to the mainland to get groceries and stuff like that. They didn't have a grocery store out on their reservation, so they would be crossing the lake in the middle of the winter, and sometimes people would fall in and die and stuff like that. So it's a real sad story. But this community, they end up getting a grocery store and things like this, and
The things that we take for granted,
yeah,
they've been denied.
they give, because of all these taxes and stuff like that that go towards the rehabilitation facility, the DID facility. But not only that, we also open up a high school there, so they don't have to go to the city, to Winnipeg, for their kids to go to high school, because they only have up till middle school there. And then another thing is grocery store, high school, and then a rehab clinic that's free for anybody who wants to go to it. So if they have problems with alcohol or anything like that, they can get clean. And basically, the idea is to give them purpose, to give them their own lives, and to make, not like they have to leave, but to try to help them make the community strong.
Now, I want to say something positive about the county where I live. Okay, this is Miwok territory. That's the tribe, and we have two separate reservations, and both of these reservations now have casinos. And both of them are using the money from the casinos to clean up their tribal areas because they were so poor they didn't care before. And they are investing in medical centers. Now, before they did this, Adventist Health had a pure monopoly here. And if you were not a Christian, they would not treat you. And the that's why the tribe in their two separate entities has gone into medical care. And the care that they give is on a par with what Adventist Health did, and they don't care what your religion is. I just thought that this was something, these people should be praised for this. And there was some sort of a blurb in the local paper a couple of years back where the particular town I live in, the reservation that adjoined it, put a thing in the paper where they were reclaiming their tribal lands, which included the town, but that if you were willing to live in peace with them, they were willing to let you stay. And that has got to be the best solution that I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's great, and that's how it should be. Are you familiar with the? Do you? I'm sure you do, but I gotta ask just to make sure. Do you remember the concept of cross-cultural contamination?
Yes.
Yeah, the breakaway.
That was why we were not supposed to go to places that already had a civilization. That was what the military industrial complex violated when they cut all the trees on that world.
But they also get very specific with it. Like they'll have worlds with a German, Hmong, Polish, whatever, different cultures, and they'll keep them sectioned off and districted, and they don't allow, they limit the contact between the different districts, and they call it cross cultural contamination. And the idea is that since everyone's cultures are so different, they'll like bomb each other, and there'll be terrorist attacks and things like this if we don't. This is one of the things that I remember from like Centurion 5, for instance.
Humans have a tendency to be territorial, and we have a thing that is so bad that anthropology has a name for it. It's ethnocentrism. It means my kind is the best and we should be the only kind. Now, it comes down to how do you define what my kind is? I personally define it as people who are from Earth or on Earth. And I found that there are very few people who feel that way.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
If everybody thought of it as those from Earth or on Earth, it would stop war almost immediately.
Yeah, I really like the idea, like you said, of like reclaiming your land or your culture or whatever, but being like, we're doing this, but it's cool if you want to be a part of it. You just gotta understand we're doing this. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, you can stay if you want. We're not gonna kick everybody out that isn't like us. Like, you don't have to be like us to stay here, but we just want you to understand this is our land.
Yeah, this is our land. No, they said you had to be willing to live with them in peace.
Yeah, and
That was
that's
their
pretty.
requirement.
I feel like if that was just kind of like a human ethos instead of like a more specific niche ethos, we'd be doing a lot better.
Yes.
But the might equals right. We got to protect ourselves. We got to make people afraid of us so they don't fuck with us. That's kind of the idea behind it. You know how the military is like. You got to strike first. You got to keep your enemy afraid of you. Yada yada yada. That's just how it is.
Okay, there is a thing coming through the family where Earth will be, they think, upgraded from nations to regional zones. And the North American zone will start at the southern border of the United States and take the rest of North America, including Greenland. And Trump knows about this, and that's why Trump is making these noises about Canada being the 51st state and taking over Greenland, blah, 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 blah. That's what's behind his nonsense. But the reason that he's pulling it, going along with it, is that he's still stuck in that manifest destiny zone.
Yeah.
And there used to be a website that had the entire plan on it, and it was taken down last October before the election. And I have downloaded most of the paperwork for it, but most of these sites don't let you upload PDFs, directly. So I have, I can do it in Messenger up to a limit in size. I have a Substack where I think I'm going to be uploading the documents from that website to it, if they'll let me. I'm not sure if I can upload a PDF or if I have to do a link. So, but these are things that kind of explain that the old royals were given the planet by Marduk, and that they have been operating in 70-year contracts with people, and that those contracts were up in 2016 and have not been renewed. So that's why we've had such hell for the last 10 years, is because humans are just doing what humans do. And that they are about to impose their will upon the rest of us because they own the planet and we don't. And if they are telling the truth, which is always questionable if it was a website. But if they were telling the truth, I have their whole plan.
What's that called again, Penny? That plan that you're talking about?
They call it the Islamic United States of North America.
Okay, and wow.
And they do plan on making it Islamic.
How do they plan
And
on pulling
I
that off?
do not intend to live under Sharia law, whether Christian or Islamic, period. I was property until I was in my 30s under the law, and I won't be property again.
It just seems like it'd be really hard for them to pull off in the United States.
If you take a good look at some of the large cities, there are huge sections that are already under Sharia law.
What do you mean by that?
The locals have zones with fences around them, and inside the zone you are living under Sharia law. If you don't wish to live under Sharia law, you don't go in. So um, we already have a huge Islamic population in the United States, and they voted for Trump.
Yeah, it's just a really weird concept for me. Like it's like kind of a curveball, like really unexpected for me because like it seems to me more like they're trying to create like a white nationalist, like Christian sort of thing. Like
They're
not so
setting
much.
up for a civil war.
Yeah, which has been
They
talked about. Albert Pike has talked about that. That's basically
Albert
like
Pike has
this.
talked about that.
It's a
Albert,
social engineering thing that they've planned for a long time for these because you know you have two sides that are going against each other and then you benefit from the chaos basically. You know what I mean?
the Third World War in his plan was to be between the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims.
And you're kind of watching that play out right now.
Yes.
Honestly, I mean,
And
with what's going on in Israel and everything else, like we're seeing that happen.
yeah, we are seeing that happen. And telling people what their plan was seems to undermine it to a certain extent because
That's what I always thought.
so that's why I'm talking about the plan. It's not that I want it to happen, it's that I want people to know this is what they're planning. So if you don't want it, do something.
Right. And I think that it's kind of like you said, like the whole like you're allowed to live with us, just just live in peace with us or whatever. It's like that's we all need to just respect each other's cultures and stuff like that. And I think also at the same time, when you're living in the United States, there's a certain level of we believe in liberty, we believe in freedom and stuff like that. So if your culture goes against that, like I don't think we should just like give that a free pass necessarily. You know what I mean? Like we really can't. Like so it's kind of like what is it called? The tolerance of paradox, the paradox of tolerance. Have you ever heard of that before?
I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah, it's like you can tolerate. You have to tolerate people who are different than you, but if they don't tolerate other people, you can't tolerate. It's like a
Well,
contradictory thing, but it's
I'm
also
not
not.
I'm not so much saying that people should not have their right to believe what they want. I'm saying they don't have the right to impose it on others.
Absolutely, that's it, and that is the paradox of tolerance. This is like, okay, you can believe that over there on your own, and but when people are like, no, you have to believe it too, that's where it becomes a problem.
Yes. When they want to push their beliefs on the people around them and enforce it, and Sharia law does allow capital punishment if you're not following it.
Yeah,
And
no, we see what's going on in Afghanistan and stuff like that. That would be
well, Afghanistan,
a real life
Iran,
example of that right now.
yeah, Afghanistan and Iran are the two biggest examples, and Saudi Arabia. The
Oh yeah,
Saudis have
they've got really messed
always
up
been
laws
that
there.
way.
Yeah, they've got pretty messed up laws over there. A lot of money, a lot of wealth, a lot of messed up laws.
Even when they didn't have wealth, they enforced this. And what really bothers me is all of those Abrahamic faiths, when you get right down to their holy books, they consider females to be property rather than people. And I know you will hear from people who say that feminism was only so they could tax us. Not from my perspective. From my perspective, I was a slave and I was freed. And I'm not going back to slavery.
Yeah, I agree with that. People tend to. I think it's part of the binary like 010001 programming where people look at things so black and white. It's like yes, they took advantage of the civil rights feminist movement in order to slowly make the state have more control of their children. Children are watching TV more, things like this. Basically, if it was a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, at first it was a choice. It was, oh, okay. Well, if the woman wants to work, she can't. Which this didn't happen overnight, but she can, right? Well, it turned into now both mom and dad have to work, and that was never the intention behind it. They chipped away at it, and that does not mean that women should have the right to work. That women should. They should be able to choose their roles in society. They shouldn't have to just be like a mother. You know what I mean?
Well,
But they
I
took advantage of that, and
okay, real world here and now. My first husband was pastor, and he was habitually unfaithful, and he beat me.
I'm sorry they had to deal with that.
Remember when I had my spinal fusion surgery several years ago? It was because of an injury he had given me in 1977, and it literally took me 44 years to get a doctor to fix it. Okay? When I divorced him for his habitual adultery, which is the only reason that the New Testament gives you can have a divorce. Okay? I was excommunicated by the church I grew up in because he was one of their pastors. Never mind, he was the guilty party. Then I was raising 3 little boys by myself. And this was a time frame that women were property. And I had a really, really hard time making enough money to support my 3 sons. And he, my ex, their father, decided he was not going to pay child support because he wasn't living with us. And I had to go on aid. I wasn't on full aid. I was on Medicaid and food stamps. But they took my whatever child support I got, and I only got the first $50 of it. And they pursued him because he wasn't paying child support. He went as far as losing his driver's license, losing his teaching credentials, all of that. And he blamed me. Well, eventually he ended up on Social Security disability, and you can't sue someone who is on Social Security disability. There are laws preventing it. So I lost the $35,000 that he owed me. Now, this is what it was like. Okay.
Yeah, women didn't even like write checks and stuff until.
When we got married, I could not open a bank account without his signature. I could not get a job without his signature. I could not rent my own place without his signature.
Yo, women couldn't even open up bank accounts until 1974.
Right. I got married in
crazy.
1974.
That's crazy. You couldn't get it.
This is what it was like when I had my last child in 1984. I had eclampsia. A lot of the audience is going to know what that is. My blood pressure was 250 over 150, which is stroke range, and had been that way for almost a week. I went into a regular doctor appointment because he wouldn't take me in any other way. They saw the shape I was in, and they said, it has to be birthday. This was 5 weeks early. Okay. He said no. They couldn't do anything to help me until he said yes. In 1984.
That's crazy.
So they put me in a bed in one of the back rooms. They locked him into the exam room, and they browbeat him until he finally signed the paperwork.
Whoa. Wow.
After I heard about this, I was so proud of those doctors. They were second year residents in a teaching program, and they bullied this man into taking care of me.
Good.
Yes. And I ended up with an induction with magnesium sulfate put into my arm. And that lasted 12 hours. And then there was an emergency C-section. And I had an NDE during the C-section. And when I came to, I didn't know where my baby was because they had put my baby in the newborn intensive care unit because he was intersex. And that started a nightmare of its own. And because the baby wasn't either gender, but completely in between, with not enough of either anything to work.
Trump just made illegal. That's an illegal human being now.
The doctors would not let me bring him home until they assigned female. And at 16, he turned into this angry, bitter, vicious person who has since completely broken contact with me. And he completely misunderstands what his situation was. He thinks he was a male that was castrated. He was not. He was completely in between with nothing there to work with. And the doctors made it worse. And I am an advocate for letting intersex children grow up and decide what they are, rather than doing surgery at birth. Just keep them where they can pee. That's it. Leave the rest of it alone. But no, medical science has decided that those babies are female and they will interfere every damn time against the parental wishes. They literally locked me into a room and told me that if I did not sign for the surgery, that they would take my child through CPS and that I would never see him again and that they would continue to do whatever they wished. At least this way, I got to know my baby.
Yeah, that's a wild thing. Like a lot of people don't know that that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, babies are being mutilated at birth to more or less just fit the gender binary, which now there's laws that that's one of the first things that Trump did was sign this law saying there's only two genders, which I get he's trying to appeal to his fan base and stuff like that, but that's still just I'm not trying to make excuses for it at all. It's craziness.
It's ignorant. It's ignorant. It's prejudice. It's ignorant.
It's dangerous too. It's going to get people.
Yeah, hurt. It is. It's going to get all of those kids are going to end up killed. And we have the word hermaphrodite in history for a reason.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah.
It's a real thing, and those same families that are descended from Jesus have the disease that carries it. In our case, it's called congenital adrenal hyperplasia. And you can think of it as a birth defect if you want. You can think of it as a disease state if you want, but you still have a child that's in between.
Yeah, I think that your kind of approach to just let them figure it out on their own is probably the approach, because you can't make that decision for somebody, I don't think,
Yeah. The doctors were freaking out. That was the real problem. They could not handle it emotionally. And they assumed that the child would have social problems because of it. And I didn't want to have the surgery. I just wanted to keep my baby where he could pee and let him grow up and decide for himself. That was it. And that choice was taken from me. And if I had stood my ground, I would have lost my child.
That's not okay.
No, it's not okay. But that's the way things were in 1984, when I was still property, because the Supreme Court had made the rulings, but they had not filtered down even to the medical people.
So something kind of interesting is saying here, also 3:33 p.m. Well, I don't know who that is. Said people were hermaphrodites before the Chitauri changed people. I don't know if that's true, but I do remember that there are ET races that are entirely hermaphroditic, meaning kind of who takes the male role and who takes the more feminine role. They kind of decide, and it can
Yeah.
maybe be interchangeable, but they all have the same body parts. They all can get someone pregnant, and they all also can get pregnant. So that is a thing, and that's why I think it's funny. Like these people are really, I guess, like transphobic or like against the idea of intersex people and stuff like that are in this community. It's like, okay, well, do you think that all aliens, like aliens, don't have like wild concepts that are kind of maybe hard to wrap your mind around? Don't you think that you should be a little more open minded? Like, I thought that was kind of
They
silly.
don't want to be open-minded because that would upset their ordered little world. They have
Yeah.
an ordered little world where you do what God said, even if it hurts, that women are property and have to obey their husbands, and that it's okay to beat them if they don't. This is their ordered world. This is the same ordered world in every place where Abrahamic faith is dominant. And that's dominance can be as little as 30% of the population. And I have seen this everywhere I have lived. And I know people get upset when I say that, but when I was in the programs, I met a lot of our sky gods. And they were ETs that I could kill with a laser sword. And if I can kill them with a laser sword, I'm not going to worship them.
Yeah, I try to explain that to people too. Like I met some of these beings, and they were not good.
They're not good. They're not gods. They're ETs pretending to be gods. Now there is a creator of all that is. And that being I do give service to. But that's not any of our sky gods.
Nope.
So, no, guys, I'm not an atheist. No, guys, I'm not Luciferian. No, guys, I'm not out there teaching evil. What I am teaching is if you're the same species, your blood type, your gender doesn't fucking matter. You're still a human being. And we should all be equal before the law. Period. Have your beliefs. Do what you want to do with consenting adults. But don't push it on anybody else.
Yeah. I agree with that. I want to get back to some of the current events stuff.
I had a couple of links up that I can give you in private chat that you can add them if you want.
Okay. But yeah, I was wondering what you think of the Stargate, Project Stargate, and the AI, how they're gonna fund all this money in AI and build all these supercomputers and all that stuff. Like, you've been following that at all?
Repeat that a minute.
The Stargate project, where basically Elon Musk is involved, and these AI guys are involved, and they're trying to build.
Oh, the new one where they're gonna
They're calling it Stargate, which
they're calling it Stargate, but it's supposedly to treat cancer.
it doesn't make any sense.
It's just that same bullshit with my mind just went blank. I'm sorry. It's the same bullshit with the mRNA vaccines that actually hurt.
Yeah. They want to target. They want to be able to like read people's DNA and be able to better treat them. But I think it's more like that's sus to me. That's, I don't know. But anyway, I can't share my screen for some reason. But we're looking at an article right now. A federal judge extends order barring unauthorized Doge access to Treasury payment system.
I thought that was a nice thing.
The judge expressed wariness of the Trump administration to rush grant Treasury Department outsiders on Elon Musk's Doge sweeping access to the country's federal management databases.
Now this next one is probably pretty good, but Newsweek wants me to pay them, and so they're not letting me read it.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Too many people are money hungry. They would get a lot more business if they gave more free. So, but yeah, I did a hunt while I was eating lunch to make sure that, yeah, I think that's the two good ones. There were a whole bunch of unrelated bullshit things, but those were the good ones.
Yeah.
One of them, there are, I think it's a dozen blue states that are suing for Musk to stop firing people. And the one from Newsweek is about that the judge gave those states access to the Doge records so that they can see what Elon has actually done. And Tanya Chutkan is the judge. The other one cut down Doge access to the Treasury to 2 people who have read-only access. They cannot change things. So that was also from lawsuits. So the lawsuits are having a serious effect on the overarching abuse of authority. Now, people don't generally understand I'm basically economically conservative and socially liberal. And that's a combination that confuses folks. I agree that the actual fraud and waste should be stopped. But at the same time, the programs that actually help people should be protected. And Mr. Musk does not apparently understand that concept. To him, anything that is not exactly what they were said to do is fraud or waste. And I'm just sort of,
Yeah, there's been a lot of exaggeration, misframing, flat out lies when it comes to a lot of this Doge stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of the truther community is just blindly going along with it because they're like, oh, they just think their team is winning. And that's been really frustrating for me to watch, honestly. I'm not saying that there isn't all sorts of, I mean, I can only imagine that our tax money is going towards all sorts of fraudulent, messed up stuff. But there are, there's a lot of fraudulent and corrupt things happening with Doge. I mean, it's not an opinion, it's a fact. He's firing the people who are investigating his Neuralink chips. He's firing the people who are investigating his cars.
Yeah, I watched that go down. I did have a post on my wall weeks ago. My intention was to find out who was most triggered, and in the process eliminate some of the agents on my wall. And I did find a couple of political activists who argued on my wall for the next 3 weeks. I went through and made my posts public because they have to be public if I'm going to shut off comments. And so I shut off comments for, what was it, almost 3 weeks? And I finally got people to understand I did not want infighting on my wall. that if you can stay rational and you can discuss with facts, then yes, we can talk. But I do not want people thinking I support Musk or Trump or Biden or Harris, because from my opinion, they are all puppets. Absolute fucking puppets. And the people who are really in charge are trying to take down this country because we have become too successful, too fat and lazy. And in my childhood, our people were too smart. And that was why they stopped teaching critical thinking and started teaching for jobs that, by the way, no longer exist. And the rallying cry in the Reagan administration, which was before you were born, was factory workers don't need to know how to think. The factory workers who know how to think will just get themselves fired. And that was their rationale for this. And what has happened is you have people who listen to the media uncritically, who believe every damn lie that is put out there, pro or con. And you've got people who are believing things that are objectively not true. And they have no thinking skills to reason out what is true, nor do they have the research skills to find the actual records. And then you've got people who say, well, the records are all lies because they can't read them. And I'm getting to where I am so worried about our culture is rapidly going back to the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages, where you believed the earth was flat and that the constellations were gods.
Yeah.
This is where we're going. And I'm screaming, no!
And with the AI, you need to use your brain less and less and less. You can keep on handing off tasks to it until you don't even need to fucking think anymore. So that's another thing that's going to basically confound this problem and make it even more of a problem.
Yes. And I read this stuff online, and Drago Reed brought it up a couple of days ago about how that he won't even read someone's wall if they're using AI. I have someone who is using AI for art, and he slimes my wall with it every damn day. And he hasn't gotten the hint that I'm not sharing them. Because I have my wall set up where that I have to approve for posts to be on my wall.
Yeah, me too.
And I go through and I say, hide, 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 hide. Sometimes there's 4 of them from him a day. And talking to him is like talking to a brick wall. It's like pure emotion and no thought. And it's frustrating. It's crazy making. So between everybody being triggered at the election and the crap that has gone down since Trump was sworn in, I've gotten to where I dread coming on Facebook, and I used to enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't go on there anymore, really.
I know you don't. You just kept Messenger. And I'm glad you kept away from me to keep in touch with you. But I see the comments on my posts, and you can tell clear generational differences in the ability to think. And it worries me. I have grandkids. They're college age. what kind of world are they going to be raising their kids in?
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
It almost feels like we kind of have seen the golden days in a way already, and they're over. But hopefully, that's not the case.
This is like a reenactment of the fall of Rome.
That is what it's like. Yeah, it's like the fall of Rome with Wi-Fi.
Exactly. So the fall, where you would think it would make it take longer, it isn't. Well, the Wi-Fi is making it go faster.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, all the problems are exacerbated by that. It feels like it almost feels like they're purposely like.
You're so inundated with pure bullshit. It's frustrating. And I sit there trying to speak the straight truth, and I have to water it down to what would have been kindergarten level at my youth, because they cannot understand the terminology. They can't understand the reasoning. They start to read it and they flip out emotionally, and they can't even hear the rest of it. And it's frustrating. If I take my wall back private, it will be because of the comments from total strangers that are just irrational. And then I hear from the New Age people who believe that thought is evil, that you live by your heart. And I'm sorry, if you are not thinking, you are going to be taken down this path faster. If we have any hope of turning this around, people are going to have to start going offline for a couple hours a day at least and think about what they've heard. Does it make sense? Who does it benefit? That's the most important question you can ask about anything. Qui bono? Who benefits? And follow the money, because the money never lies.
This is true. Yeah.
You know, politicians will lie. Bookkeepers can even lie. But if you follow where the money goes, and that is the only good thing coming out of Doge, is he is tracking the money.
Yeah. It's a good thing to expose. I think that moving forward, it should just be transparent. There should be like a website you can go to and you can see, oh, my taxes went towards this today. And it should
Actually,
give you a sense of well-being instead of a sense of like, oh man, you know what I mean?
your taxes don't go for any of that. Our taxes go for the interest payments to the Federal Reserve, and the rest of the budget is all borrowed. That's why we have such a huge national debt.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But it's been that way since 1913. In my personal opinion, we should boot the Federal Reserve out of our country.
Yeah, it seems like that would be a good thing. I'm no like social economic like genius or anything like that, but that does kind of seem like they're just like a pyramid scheme. Like it's like a
Yes,
scam.
it's a big scam. They print our money and they charge us interest on it. There's no reserves to back it up. It's not based on gold. It's just paper. They print our money and charge us interest on it. And now they're not even having the expense of printing the money. They're just entering zeros and ones into a computer and still charging us interest on it. Our money was worth $32 to an ounce of gold in 1913. They have stolen that much value of our paper money in 112 years. $32 for an ounce of gold.
As well.
That's what our money used to be worth, and it's not anymore. Our money now is worth less than $1 of what it was then. And it's the fault of the Fed. And in 1933, we did not have the money to pay the interest, and that was why Roosevelt nationalized all the gold and put it in Fort Knox. In 1953, Eisenhower had the gold in Fort Knox to pay it. In 1973, Nixon didn't have the gold, and he used our silver reserves to buy the gold to pay the Fed. In 1993, we had tungsten spray-painted gold. The Chinese found it and have started collecting on their debt because the collateral for the national debt is the labor and property of the American people. And that's why so much of the country now belongs to China. And in 2013, we defaulted entirely, which is why China went nuts in our country, because they're taking their value out of our country. Now, we're coming up on 2033, and if we don't get rid of the Fed by then, they're going to own us. That's flat out truth, bottom line core truth. And that's why Musk and Doge were going to audit Fort Knox, is because nobody believes the gold is there anymore. And this has led to all kinds of problems. The thing that I can't remember the name of the little place. Benghazi, where there was this group of Al-Qaeda, and they were going to take over the embassy, and there were 4 off-duty SEAL team members who came in, and they got themselves killed. And because they came in, the ambassador Stevens was killed. Well, it was a setup where the Al-Qaeda group was supposed to get money and arms, and they were supposed to kidnap Stevens and ransom him for more money. And because these SEALs interfered, they ended up ransoming a refinery in Algeria instead, and their job was to go take over the gold mines in Mali, sub-Saharan Africa. And Mali has the biggest gold mines in the world. And they were doing this because Germany asked for their gold back from Fort Knox. And we didn't have it. So Al-Qaeda means base, database. Al-Qaeda is not a real organization. It's a CIA-created organization, and their name means database. This is the database of people in that area that work for the CIA.
Oh, wow.
And so this was a CIA State Department operation to get gold to be able to pay back Germany. Yes, proxy army is what came up. Exactly, proxy army. Deniability. And if there's a country that doesn't do what the State Department says, they will send in Al-Qaeda as justification to bomb the place. So it's not just a proxy army, it's a deniable false flag situation.
These guys got everything. they're so good at what they do with their psychological operations and their manipulations. Like they just got everything so messed up. Like you got to become like this crazy like independent researcher, like putting all the dots together. It's exhausting, and it's sad because most of the public doesn't even really have enough time to do that damn near. And I
No,
feel
they
like the
don't.
big part of the problem is like how can you do something about like all there's just so many different facets. They got so many different.
You know, the group from the NSA that activated me, it was an agent who activated me, but his boss spent 2 years teaching me how to be a dissident without getting arrested. You will find that there are lines I go up to but do not cross. That's because Werner taught me not to. And he told me what the consequences would be if I did. And I've been very careful to not cross lines. And I have had people scream at me because I wouldn't.
I feel like this is a pretty good question. I mean, I feel like isn't it obvious? Doesn't everybody know this?
They bombed the they didn't bomb the two towers. What they did was there was a group from a certain country we're not allowed to talk bad about. And they went through the Twin Towers and building number 7 that was not hit by a plane. And they prepared it for demolition. Now, the Twin Towers were full of asbestos, and they housed a bunch of offices that were related to secret projects that they didn't want talked about. And one of them was this thing, Gassara, whatever it is, where people have this pipe dream that they're going to get government money. The government is never, ever, ever going to willingly give us money. That's it. Okay, so they were getting rid of records that implicated the American government in things. And the records at Building 7, it was an FBI building, and they had the records of how they created the Murrow building issue, the secret program behind the Murrow building issue, and also had records on where, okay, Rumsfeld had said the day before in Congress that we were $2.5 trillion that could not be accounted for. And those records were in the FBI building 7 at the World Trade Center, and at the Pentagon in the exact place that the missile hit. No, it wasn't an airplane. It was a missile. The one video shows that clearly. So this was one of those, we are going to create a situation where we can justify destroying whatever part of the world we so desire, because they declared a war on terror.
Yeah.
That's how we heard it. But if you listen, they called it a war on terra, the planet. And that's what we've had ever since, is a war on the planet and its people. And it was planned on purpose. You watch the video, I Pet Goat 2, and it lays it all out for you in cartoons. And we are near the end of that video. We are between the
iPad Goat 2? What's that? What?
I Pet Goat 2. I can give you the link in Messenger. You can add it to the description. It gives the laydown of how that went down, and toward the end of the video, it shows the Notre Dame Cathedral being burned.
Do you want to maybe we could probably watch it if you want.
Okay, let me pull it up and I'll give you the link.
Here, I actually found the link already, and I'm downloading it. I have to download it. Let's see if it works. But
Okay.
later, yeah, we can watch it. Yeah, hold on, just a second. All right, just one moment, and then I'll present video file. Here we go. All right, is this it?
That's it.
All right. This is super creepy.
You think?
Who made this?
A group that calls itself Heliofont.
Yeah, look at the Masonic checkerboard. He's wearing a dunce
The
cap.
dunce cap, because he gave everybody the impression he was stupid.
Yeah, the Jar Jar Binks thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
People think that the original Sith Lord in Star Wars was going to be Jar Jar Binks. It's this whole thing. If you look into it, it actually kind of makes sense, but people hated him so much that it's a long story. But basically, there's this idea that if you appear stupid to your enemy, you'll be able to easily infiltrate them and then take them down.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's definitely something that is used in politics. Anyway, like for instance, like Trump, sometimes he appears like a buffoon, really stupid, but the reality is he knows exactly what he's doing, and he's pretty intelligent. Like,
Bush was in Skull and Bones.
yes, he was also Bush Senior was like, I don't know if you know about this, but in Ibis, I guess, and this is from other people's memories, not mine. We're 100% real on that, but apparently he was father, and then the Queen of England was mother. So I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but
well, there's a lot of these people who are presented as the opposite gender, because if they don't kill their firstborn, they have to raise them as the opposite.
Oh yeah, I've talked about that before.
And now the new version is they send them to Nachtwaffen for a 30 and back or more instead.
Oh wow!
Go ahead and play this. This is a totally, it's creepy, but it goes through with symbolism and shows everything that's happened this century.
Okay.
Fool me one. Shame on. Shame on you. Shame on you. Fool me, take that fool again.
That's the Twin Towers coming down.
Okay. gotta be honest with you, I have no idea what's going on right now.
That's supposed to be the cosmic return of Jesus.
Okay.
That's Notre Dame behind him.
Well, that was. Well, that was interesting.
Yeah, the first time I went through it, I thought, oh my God. And about the third time I watched it, all of the symbols started to make sense.
Yeah, well, people can put a link to that in the. Did you put a link to that in the chat? Private chat. You know, I can find it. I was just.
Okay. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that's telling us what's happening, but we don't always understand the symbols that they're using. And
Yeah, that's a big part of what they do. We're
I Pet Goat was the book that they were reading in the Florida classroom when President Bush was in the room while the Twin Towers were being hit.
yeah, that was a weird.
That was
moment.
why they named the video that.
Yeah, that was a very weird moment. That's definitely very infamous as well. A lot of people look at that moment as like a very odd.
It was a ritual. There were over 3,000 people killed, sacrificed, and some of the original shots of the flames showed a demonic face in the flames. So this was a ritual.
Yeah, I 100% believe that. Yeah, I remember.
It wasn't complete because there was not a plane that actually hit Building 7.
Yeah,
If they had, it would have completed the ritual. Mark Passio has a whole layout of what actually went down there, and it's several hours, so people can look for that. Um, Mark Passio is a former Satanist who is exposing their beliefs and dogmas so that the rest of us can find out what's going on. And yeah, he's kind of passionate and it comes across as yelling, but the information is worth turning down the volume and listening.
like that. Worth turning down the volume. Just turn down the volume a bit.
Yeah, just turn it down where you don't feel like you're being yelled at. Yeah.
You should be good.
Yeah. I have that attitude. A lot of people get passionate and start yelling because they have so much emotion behind it. But yeah, that can feel really like an assault. So turn down the volume, buffer it a little.
I'll have to check him out, Mark Passio.
Mark Passio is one of the best people to explain the issues that we're dealing with from the dark side, and he makes a lot of sense. His 8-hour presentation on natural law, I think, should be required for everyone in the truther or disclosure movements.
I'll have to watch that then.
Um,
You'll have to send me a link to that if you can.
okay, I will. It's amazing. He's on my wish list for guests on my show. There are about 5 people that I would dearly love to have on my show, and so far all of them think I'm a nut job and won't come.
That's too bad. I did put a link to your Odyssey in the description of this video, by the way, for people watching this.
Thank you. I do put up copies of videos that are done with other people, especially if the other person chose not to share it. Some of them are because we got into fights. But even in the course of fights, you can still get a lot of really good information.
Yeah, I've had that happen before. I had that happen with, I guess I shouldn't say his name, but
there are a lot of people out there who are stubborn, pig-headed, and passionate.
well,
And they would rather butt heads than listen to someone slightly disagree with them.
yeah, my whole thing was this person, who I'm not going to name, was telling me that there aren't alternate timelines, and for me, that's like kind of weird for someone to come on my show and tell me that. So I never aired it, and that was the end of our friendship.
Yeah.
Which I don't blame him. I get it. It's like, okay, this whole interview, and you're not even going to put it on air. But yeah,
Yeah.
no. Well, anyway, bygones be bygones. I shouldn't really even talk about that. But yeah, I think that we can kind of wrap it up. We're at like the 2-hour mark, 2-hour 20-minute mark. Is there anything you want to say to people before we do wrap this up?
I think that people need to start thinking instead of emoting, and they really need to start looking into who benefits by what's happening. Follow the money. Suspend judgment if it's someone you know you dislike, but people are telling you to look at their work. None of us are perfect. And while someone may actually be a bad guy, they may actually be accidentally doing something good.
Okay, I like that. That's a good way to end it. I want to also. I guess I can let you go. I'm gonna thank all my patrons. I'm gonna read that off, and then I'm gonna end the show. So, thank you, Penny, for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
All right, have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
All right, bye now. All right. I just wanted to say thank you to my patrons. I usually have a video, but I didn't get the chance to make it this time, so I just want to say to Marty Bertoni, thank you. Um, Leslie La Rubio, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, thank you. The one, the only Robert Khalil, the typical skeptic, thank you for being a patron. Robert Eckert, thank you so much. Um, Dragon S, thank you so much for being a patron. Mystic Herbs, love you so much. Thank you for being a patron of the patron. Uh, Charlie, thank you so much. GM, thank you for being a patron of the channel. And uh, Christine C, Donna, Lauren, Mark M, Susan Tatsuko Kano, Mario Mares, Shelly Thomas, Amaria Sweet, thank you so much. Peter Harlamos, Benjamin Matthews, Anastasia, Dan Guest, and Gary Fretz. Adrian, thank you so much. Heather Blessington, Zach, Ursula, Mark Sabas, and Katie Mabry, and Renee Fontana. You all mean so much to me. Thank you for your financial support. The link to the Patreon is in the description if you would like to join and support my work. It's only $5 a month. And also, there's a PayPal if you would feel like donating. That's up to you, but I really appreciate it when people do donate. It helps me out tremendously. And you all have a good night. Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of your night, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. Much love. Take care.